Good afternoon, everyone. The screen is visible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, I will start recording the session.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, for this talk, which we have named as Trees. This is Talks on Renewables, Empowering Earth and Sustainability by Dr. Harish Hande from SELCO Foundation. This talk is brought to you by GCOE ACE. GCOE ACE is the center of...
Okay, I think that sharing has stopped.
Sharing has stopped?
Yeah. Yes, I think now it. Yes, now it has.
Yes, sorry about that. So the center GCOE ACE is a global center of excellence for affordable and clean energy. We have inaugurated this center last month. The center is housed at IIT Dharwad, where we are going to have laboratory facilities, upscaling activities, research and development, mentorship, outreach and talks. So trees is one of the part of it. Hackathon and challenges, innovation support and incubation support. This center is supported with the grassroots implementation partner, which is SELCO Foundation. They have field level experiences and field deployments and mentorship. The center is also mentored, given mentorship by Office of PSA, Government of India, and mentorship support and guidance for the center is received from them. The center is funded through CSR donation from Honeywell, which is Honeywell Hometown Solutions India Foundation. For the financial year 2021-2022, the CSR donation is to establish the laboratory equipments, and we are now doing the establishments of equipments in test and measurement, fabrication lab, skill development, R&D, and field test labs. The motivation for the center is basically increasing environmental and climate change concern. And for this, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 have been laid down. So Sustainable Development Goal 7 is affordable and clean energy. So that's why the center is doing the activities in the affordable and clean energy domain. The targets of SDG 7 is universal access to modern energy. The second target is increase global percentage of renewable energy percentage, double the improvement in energy efficiency of the appliances, promote access to research, tech, and investment in clean energy. Also expand and upgrade energy services for developing countries. The center is going to work on the SDG 7 targets. Also by 2017, India's goal is to go for net zero.
Neeraj, you are not audible.
He is audible, Rishiraj. You are audible here.
Okay.
Clearly.
So the center is committed for doing the innovation and incubation so that we can achieve the net zero by 2070. So you can reach to the center through the contact emails. We have office.ace@iitdh.ac.in and fic.ace@iitdh.ac.in. So thank you. This is a small introduction about the center. I invite Professor Prasanna sir to speak a few words.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Thank you for all this effort that you and your team is putting towards setting up this Global Center for Energy in Affordable and Clean Energy. I still remember the days when Dr. Harish Hande and his team came to IIT Dharwad, spent a lot of time explaining the efforts that they are doing towards deployment of solutions in this domain to the mass of the people in the country. Of course, several sessions of discussions happened, and finally, through him, we got in touch with Dr. Sapna Poti ji, in the Principal Scientific Officer. So she was the key person in connecting to different industries. Through them, we got into Honeywell. Thanks to the Honeywell to coming on board and sharing our dreams in setting up these things. As Dheeraj mentioned, the goal is to bring out several solutions for affordable and clean energy and make it happen to dissipate the same across the width and breadth of the country, not only for our country, other third world countries also. So this will be a platform for all interested in bringing up solutions, low-cost solutions in the affordable and clean energy areas. As we are blessed with a lot of renewable energy sources, I think through these centers, I'm wishing that we will be able to, jointly with Honeywell and SELCO, we'll be able to roll out many wonderful solutions for this. Of course, now as Dheeraj mentioned, with the generous support from Honeywell, we are setting up all the equipment facilities to be used by anybody, not only from IIT Dharwad, community from anywhere in the country can come and use. Especially we invite local innovators, entrepreneurs to participate in these activities of the center and then make use so that together we deploy solutions to the society. That's very, very important. Of course, in this direction, this TREES is a very important platform to listen to experts like Harish Hande, who have their lifetime experience to be shared with all of us, which as academicians know, we are only locked up in an office chamber, but to listen to such experienced people in the field, what is needed to view our perspective of bringing out solutions for affordable and clean energy. I have heard this, Harish, many times. It will be a wonderful talk. Thank you, Harish, for taking time out of your busy schedule and kickstarting this TREES series. I'm sure with this inaugural talk, it will go in a long way to get many more experts to the platform and share the knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dheeraj. Over to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I invite Meghana to introduce the speaker to the audience. Meghana?
Thank you, sir. Now I'll introduce today's speaker. Dr. Harish Hande is the founder and CEO, SELCO Foundation, and founder and chairman of SELCO Solar Light Private Limited. Dr. Harish Hande is recognized as a pioneer of rural energy service across the globe. He wanted to bust the myth that while solar energy is environmentally desirable, it is very expensive and only the rich can afford it. Through SELCO, Dr. Harish successfully demonstrated and decentralized energy solutions, particularly those powered by solar, can be truly sustainable, provided it is implemented combining appropriate technological, financial, and ownership models suited to the cash flows and local contexts of the poor. For his pioneering efforts, Harish has received many national and international awards, including more recently the Skoll Award for Social Entrepreneurship in 2018 and Asia's prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2011. I invite Dr. Harish to give his talk on poverty, sustainability, and technology. Participants are requested to post their questions using questions and answer tab. Over to you, sir.
Please unmute the mic, Harish.
Thank you, Meghna, for the generous introduction. And thank you so much, Prasanna sir and Dheeraj sir, for this opportunity to have this collaboration, more importantly with IIT Dharwad, because we believe that when Professor Sheshu and all of you came together, we said Dharwad is the right place to actually be at the center of excellence for sustainable energy, because within 5 kilometers in radius, we could actually find problem statements and potential solution centers. And how do we, the whole criticism over the decades has been that the IITs have not actually contributed to rural interventions. And so let us destroy that myth also by using IIT Dharwad as the center of excellence, truly, that will go towards the prosperity of the poor. As you know, sir, because of the pandemic that happened, 200 million Indians and worldwide, more than 500 million people slipped into poverty for no fault of theirs. The question is today, with pandemic is just a curtain raiser for a bigger crisis, called the climate crisis. If you look at, and that is something that you cannot see. COVID actually, you can get a couple of vaccinations and get it through. And unfortunately, so many people lost their lives. But also, the climate crisis is much more dangerous because it's mostly today affects the poor. Whether we talk about the drought in the country, whether you talk about the floods, and you look at the sudden cyclones and the typhoons, your floods in Tanzania because of the cyclones, which you never heard about. So I think with these issues that will be recurring and increasing unless until we take some action overall. But in the meantime, the biggest brunt is always paid by the poor. So it's like the safety nets that the poor have in terms of land, in terms of agriculture, always gets eroded. And once a person commits suicide because of a drought, or somebody loses their year's cropping because of floods, they go back to generational poverty. It's not like many of us who don't get a paycheck, it's not going to destroy and get it back. It does not push us back into poverty. What it actually does is it will take a decade more. That means we will lose the whole generation of that kids. And it becomes more expensive for a nation like us to do that, to get putting money into poverty. As long today, can we meet those corrective measures that we can actually do in a manner using sustainable energy as a catalyst to democratize the delivery of livelihoods and education, and that can be done. And so first I told Professor Dheeraj that I will not show some slides, but I definitely show some slides to make that happen, because physically when we speak, it's okay to speak without slides, but in a remote with this new set of communication, it sometimes becomes very difficult to gauge the audience's interest. So what I will do is I will share some slides, if that's okay. You can see it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So for example, so what contribute? You can see the slide, Dheeraj sir, right?
Yes.
Okay. What contributes to cyclic poverty, for example? Climate, which is one of the biggest, then natural disaster, which is related to climate change, and climate in terms of both decreasing water tables, unpredictable weather patterns. You ask a farmer or anybody else, he or she has no clue what's going to happen in the monsoons this year. The skewed development in terms of the non-uniform sharing of the resources, exclusive policies, because a lot of us create policies without involving the poor as partners, and then the social conflicts and war. Some of the reasons for cyclic poverty that it's about the day-to-day survival. It's never about a long-term. So we also have to realize the empathy that people have kids. You know, Prasanna sir and Dheeraj, when we did some solar for a similar what do you call it as person in Bangalore, like the tent house that you see, and the aim of that person was, can I get stability for 6 months? Can I ever see in my life that my kid goes to school at least for one day in her life? We are talking of 2021. And we are talking about a father's aspiration that the daughter should go to school at least one day in her life. And because of the migratory nature of their households, because today they have income here, today they are thrown out, tomorrow they have to set up a hut somewhere, tomorrow a tent somewhere else. What is the stability that we are going through? And if that is the future of migration, I think what are we doing with so many fantastic colleges in the world, in the country, and medical schools? We have a choice, and that's why to all my colleagues from IIT Harvard as well as SELCO who are in the audience, that the Center for Excellence is truly should be remarkable and groundbreaking for us to take it to the next step, proving that a well-known academic institution can actually work with grassroots issues to make these solutions scaled up faster, to reduce the rate of poverty that threatens the social conflicts in a country like ours. So with that, and what has happened? The power inequality relies on natural resources and the climate change, and further the whole cycle keeps happening. So and then what we say is that if we are not able to repair the shocks that the poor face, you erode the safety nets, and what happens is you go up and down, up and down, up and down the poverty levels. You really don't create sustainable solutions for much of the what you call at least 40 to 45% of our solution. And what we are trying to do is today, what happens is we all try to act as saviors. We all come up with solutions and we fit the problem to it. We need to get away from that concept. How do you shift the poor being beneficiaries? Because we always confuse between intellectual poverty and financial poverty. We believe that people who don't have money cannot be intellectually bad. That's wrong. That's completely wrong. So we need to shift away from beneficiaries and end user to partners. The poor are our partners. The poor are our investors. The poor are our innovators. How do we create safety nets where the poor start owning assets? And the most critical part of the partnership of IIT Harvard, SELCO, and Honeywell would be how do we create benchmarking of solutions and services that are catering to the poor. So what we are trying to do in SELCO Foundation, which is very similar to why we got interested in the Center of Excellence, is that how do we make SDG 7 as an integral part of the other SDGs, like SDG 7, SDG 3, how, like, for example, as Professor Dheeraj and Professor Prasanna said about the efficiency, like SDG 3 is about health. How do we look at public health system in the country, map out every nodal point in terms of public health center to the district hospital, look at the inefficiency of the appliances from autoclave to baby warmer to operation theater. Because today when we design solar for a public health center, people say solar is expensive, but nobody's saying that the autoclave is inefficiently designed. The baby warmer is inefficient. And in a country like that, you know, Dheeraj Saab and Prasannaji, if the health sector was a country in itself, it would have been the 7th most polluter in the world, 5th most polluter. And that means even after 45 to 50% of the world's population not yet having reliable access to health, if that happens, you can imagine how the health industry would become a polluter and a big polluter. Today, what we are saying that using solar energy, pushing for efficiency of appliances, we can provide better health services right at the doorstep of the poor, whether it's the Majoli Islands, whether it's Madurai, or whether it's the St. Mary's Island in Mangalore, or whether it is us in the upper Ghats as well as in Uttarakhand. SDG 8 is livelihoods. Today, what happens to the youngsters is what you write in your resume, what I have developed as a cool app. But how many people actually work on an application for a blacksmith blower, a silk weaver, a pottery maker, crafts? Because that's not very exciting to write in a resume, and that's not going to get us a job, which is the unfortunate part of our education system, that we are not creating platforms like the Center of Excellence, where students from every background, from IITs to ITIs to RECs to local colleges and schools, can come up and say, this is the lab I can come and fail. I want to create a new type of hammer mill. I want to create a new type of thresher. I want to create a new type of peanut shell remover. These are that's the true value of engineering. And that's why we believe that the SDG 8, that is sustainable livelihoods using sustainable energy as an input would be one of the hallmarks of the Center of Excellence here along with IIT Dharwad. And so what we are saying that how can we look at SDG 7 from every other SDGs, right? Till in a country like ours, we reach the goal number 1, that is of no poverty. So what we are trying to do in SELCO Foundation is look at livelihoods. When people talk about sustainable energy, unfortunately, everybody talks about solar panels and the batteries and the LED lights, the efficiency of solar panels. That's all from the supply side. We need to start looking at sustainable energy from a demand side. For example, high efficient sewing machine that can actually do 22 to 26 types of design that will lead to increasing the income for the person. High efficient appliances like the hammer mills, so it reduces drudgery and brings in gender into play. Solar powered agri processing for farmer. What are the uptake of technologies for less than 3 acre farmers? Because if we do not look at innovations of technologies for the less than 3 acre farmers, they will get into poverty or there will be increased urban migration. And this is where the importance of livelihoods and sustainable energy. Same thing in healthcare. Today, many of the rural healthcare cannot function because of lack of energy or super guzzling of power by appliances like X-ray machines and operation theaters. How do we redesign powered kits? How can we redesign solar-powered vaccine refrigerators so immunization and vaccine can actually take place? How can we actually work on a better type of maternal room that is powered by solar, irrespective how far the lady is? We can actually make sure that there are no maternal deaths or child delivery deaths in our country, which is 69 per 100,000, still very, very high in many ways. How do we use sustainable energy for education? Whether with the advent of internet, how do we democratize education using solar-powered digital education? And the same thing in the house well-being of better lighting, better mobile charging. So sustainable, let's remove a thought process that sustainable energy is solar panels or biogas. Moment you start getting the value into it, it becomes exciting in terms of health, livelihoods, education, disaster, disability. In every area, sustainable energy actually plays a role. So we go through an ecosystem approach in sustainable energy. That these are the 5 pillars that we incubate. We have also under the Atal Innovation Center, we have an incubation process in Guwahati where we incubate non-English speakers. Because in a country like ours, everything is taken away by the English speakers. Whether PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and you get the money just because somebody is from IIT. I myself am from IIT Kharagpur, primarily because 300 million Indians did not write the exam. If they had written the exam, I would not have got into IIT. Let me be very clear. So when the IITians pat their back that I am from IIT, I tell most of the IITians are one exam wonders, that is called the JEE, and that's it. And so I think we need to destroy that myth of this IIT concept, saying that how do we create an inclusive society where learning is given more important than the educational degrees. And so we have an incubation process that actually encourages innovators and entrepreneurs from the grassroots level who can actually come and get better innovation. So how do we encourage ITIs, the root cities, the vocational schools in our country? And then we do high-risk innovation in terms of how can you look at threshers or rice mills or silk weaving machines. How do you come up with a financial model for them to be viable? So the best innovation, sometimes what happens with engineers, we confuse between affordability and low cost. For example, a 20,000 rupees sewing machine is more affordable than a 10,000 rupees sewing machine, because a 10,000 rupees sewing machine can give you 3 shirts, which is not enough for her or him to pay to the bank loan. While a more expensive sewing machine is more productive and more viable for the poor. So we confuse between affordability and low cost. So I would encourage institutions like the IIT and especially the Center of Excellence, that how do we encourage cross-cutting teams of students to do innovation? It could be a technical student, it could be a finance student, it could be a architectural student from outside to come together and develop a project or a program. And then human resources and development of different natures that we look at, and include, and also institutionalization, as you've seen in the previous slide. How do we institutionalize SDG 7 in other sectors of health, architecture, housing? And that's when the uptake of SDG 7 would actually increase. So SELCO Foundation in general works on clean energy access, energy efficient technologies, green build in these sectors of agriculture, animal husbandry, micro business, textile and crafts, and healthcare. And what I mean is, when I look at agriculture, what happens, again, I tell to a lot of the technical institutes is when we look at sustainability is like we push for solar panels and battery. No, that's not what we should look at. For example, in the dairy sector, I'm just look at dairy sector. Okay, in the dairy sector you have hydroponics, because in many drought areas you don't have enough fodder. You need a solar powered small pump to water it. And it's also, then you have shaft cutters to cut it, which could also be run by solar. Then you have vaccine storage that is required for vaccine for the animals. You have a milking machine, your solar power light for the cattle shed, your biodigesters, your milk chiller, to khoya making. In this whole value chain from inputs to production to collection, retail and processing, everything is energy incentive. Everything is expensive because of the inefficiency of the energy that is utilized for everything else. As we make milking machines more energy efficient, it can actually be run on solar power, and you democratize the delivery of milking machines. Same thing as refrigerators, same thing as khoya making machines. So how do we, in the global center of excellence, start looking at some of these issues that we face on the ground as a SELCO foundation? So we have looked at dairy and poultry. For example, poultry is right from incubators to the hatchery itself, because a lot of the chicks die in where the temperature goes extreme. How do I redesign the poultry shed so that your mortality rate of the chicks comes down? How do you innovate on a better weighing machine? How do you increase the efficiency of the shaft cutter? How do I look at redesigning the testing machine? Here in this slide itself, you have 15 to 20 problem statements that the global center of excellence can actually take and go forward. Right. So for example, in this simple example of a solar powered roti rolling machine that works in and this actually came up from Belgaum, because there are two suppliers in Belgaum who do roti rolling machine. Not only we worked with the manufacturers to make it efficient, in some cases DC powered, then it started to work on solar, which became an individual solar powered roti rolling machine to individual houses, where women who were doing 200 to 50 rotis started making 500 to 1000 rotis and taking a bank loan from very near to IIT Dharwad, that is from the Karnataka Vikas Gramin Bank. And now we have done more than 500 to 800 of these in that region itself, increasing the income of multiple families. But still there's a lot of work to do, because today everything has become aspirational. If you just look at the photograph, had we put up a little more design, the aesthetics, if you have very high, good, nice looking machines, what do you call it, as washing machines. Similarly, the roti rolling machine should be redesigned to make it aspirational. And this is an example which I wanted, where the innovation was not only done on the technology side, on the modification, the innovation was also done on the financial business models and ownership models, which is what becomes critical for technology. Is just 20% of the ballgame. Most of it is how do you actually use different methodologies of finance and ownership that can actually happen. So in the livelihood sector itself, we work on the value chain of paddy, millets, and that's why I come back to people, my colleagues from IIT Dharwad and elsewhere. Sustainable energy is not about, again, panels. It's how can we intervene in the paddy value chain, the millet value chain, the flour, the spices in cold storage, in dairy farming, crafts of pottery, cotton textile, rope making, bamboo. No, many of those innovations have actually not yet happened. And this is where, together with IIT, we should be able to So to make a little bit of a dent, and if others replicate, and that's why the main dent that we can do. So this is like in tailoring. How do you come up with high efficient motor for sewing machine for home-based, shop-based, cotton industry? Many of these innovations have actually not yet happened. And same thing in paddy rice. How do we increase the efficiency of this rice milling? Whether it's a separator, a polisher, or a grader, for example, where we have seen that little bit of changes has led to 68.5% energy savings, and same thing in the what do you call it as in the polisher. So I now come to what do you call it as seminar. So I'm now coming to the health sector. What we have been able to do, this has been our biggest scale up, is in the health sector. What used to happen is the health sector used to work on its sector, energy on its own, and whenever the health sector wanted solar to be put up, some people would do a survey and put the solar panels, and after a couple of months it would stop working. The needs, the inefficiency of the appliances in the health was never understood. Okay, you needed X amount of units, we'll provide Y number of units, and if battery goes wrong after 5 years, who cares? That's the problem. So what we basically said, only when an audit happens between the two sectors together, and that again I see a great role for the Global Center for Excellence, is today what we have done is, we have in the next 4, Dheeraj Saab and Prasanna ji, in the next 4 months, we are doing 1,720 centers fully powered by solar in Raichur, Yadgir, Kalahandi, Sambalpur, 2 districts in Manipur, 3 districts in Meghalaya, and 1 district in Nagaland. So it gives from the driest part of Raichur to the wettest part in Cherrapunji, to maternal labor rooms, to OT. All of it will be 100% blanketed, and we have an aim to power indirectly and directly with different influencers. Can be aimed to have 30,000 health centers by 2025. Numerous technical innovations, delivery model innovations, service model innovations in different medical appliances, solar delivery, maintenance models can actually come out of this. And after seeing our 5,000 systems that we did in the last 2 years, WHO came up to us and said, is there a way where we could be a technical partner? Can SELCO Foundation be a technical partner to WHO in many of the countries that need such thing in Africa? This has been our largest scale up in terms of for innovation, and especially we've also taken up that by July, all the health nodal points of Meghalaya would be 100% solar. By December of this year or early next year, Manipur would be 100% solar. This would actually push the health industry to go towards sustainability in a much faster. So we look at technology design, training and skills, service delivery. So when people look at SELCO Foundation and say we are a part of sustainable energy for us, this is what I wanted to showcase, is a catalyst. The important is the delivery. What does it actually do? Is for the health, for the education, for the livelihoods. So the opportunity for a lot of the youngsters is incredible. And this is the space of SDG 7 to actually spend your time, innovate, take risks, right from, as you see in the first picture, redesigning the belt for a health center, to working on high efficient baby warmers, or in a tribal region, how could it actually work? So just to give you from a technical perspective, that simple things like efficiency of a baby warmer leads to 53% energy savings, to phototherapy, which is highly inefficient at 270 watts, and today in the market you have 20 watts. Had I designed solar for 270 watts, people would have said, oh, solar is expensive, but they should have only gone for 20 watts. How do you combine building efficiency, medical appliance efficiency, and solar power, making it reliable and affordable at the grassroots level per se? So, and also in the last, I'll just give you that we've, because of the work that we were doing, we were asked to whether we can actually create we created a global hub saying that how do we look at these three countries, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Sierra Leone. And so parts of Orissa where we are doing work, we map it out to Tanzania. Parts of Manipur where we work is back to Ethiopia, and parts what we do in Raichur is back to Sierra Leone. And we get people from there. We take people from here, cross-cutting, saying that it's not the country boundaries. Poverty is poverty. How do we come up with innovations that can be benefiting the bottom 40%? This is a health center in Burkina Faso that we powered. We helped design, and a local enterprise actually did the powers. The same thing if you see in Ethiopia. This is what we worked on, water pumps with a partner. As you see, the terrain is very similar to India. So coming back, like we can make the India as a center of R&D for technology, for financial models, for delivery models that then can be replicated by other countries in the near future, which in a very, very small way, we've been trying to have that. So with that, I would like to end and so that any questions, and I will stop sharing. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Participants, please post your questions in question answer box. Sir, we have one question, which is from myself, basically. Last year, country faced coal crisis. There was a coal shortage, and then there was a lot of flooding, in the coal mines, which had created the shortages of coal. So are we preparing, are we going to come to that kind of scenario again? There is a possibility. So what should we do about this kind of scenarios?
No, I think as we see, it's a country that has been critical in its economic development because of decentralized businesses. If you look at our financial crisis that happened across the world in 2008 and 2009, India did not get much affected because a lot of our businesses were decentralized. But in parts of the COVID, or else we got affected because of the centralized and when the leading to the migrants working out. I think while coal, in terms of right now, we don't have a choice, but if the 40% of the people or 50% of the people start looking at, see, the moment I have not used the word climate change per se as an environmental solution, I am saying that many of the solutions today are development solutions with an added benefit of climate, leading to decentralization of resources utilization. So we are not dependent on centralized sources of fuel and energy. And that's what we should push for. More number of solar powered swing machines that you push through, more number of roti rolling machine that you push through, more number of silk weaving machine that you push through. You actually more number of PHCs in rural areas that run on solar, you push through, less reliant we are on centralized system of fuel. And that's what I think IITs become very critical in pushing, creating those centers of excellence. That we are not then worried about the oil from Saudi Arabia or import of coal, and then we have to spend so much enormous money on foreign exchange that we need to reduce when we have abundant suns.
Yeah, there are a few more questions, Dheeraj.
Sure, sir. Thank you. There is one question in the question answer box. How could our educational system help in creating a larger awareness?
See, one thing I would like to say, for example, our education system, as you read in the newspapers, is always towards placements. I think the one thing I always tell that in institutes like IITs and IIMs, we should close the placement department. Because the question is, it is no sense because 90% of the people who join the first job leave it, right? And everybody says, what am I job going to get after 4 years? Most. If you are not able to find a job, then your education was useless in many ways, right? In a sense, we need to focus on learning rather than the placement. And what type of education in terms of engineers or the doctors or the CAs, what are we coming out? Are they practical enough? And the unfortunate part in a country like us, sir, I come from energy department in IIT Kharagpur, which got closed down because 90% of the people went to software. My question is, we are not given the tools to say what can we use for the future. Boss, go and take a risk and look at where. And today we are talking, we need energy engineers in the rural areas. Where are we? Where are we not exciting? Like, for example, if IIT Kharagpur was the first IIT, then why is poverty still existing 5 kilometers out of IIT Kharagpur? It's sad. It's absolutely sad. IIT Kharagpur should have adopted 3,000 villages around it and said the students will work on innovations and make sure that every year, rather than donating money for a room or a dorm, can't you start working on the villages? And what do I do with creating a name of a hostel dorm? And somebody makes money. I mean, so my point is, how does the education system be more realistic in what the outside world is? And so that's why, I mean, I can say that, and I can say it on your behalf also. Is that last time I also told in the agriculture universities, the incentives of the professors also should be stopped saying that how many papers you write. The incentive should be, because end of the paper you should write how many people will get impacted because you wrote the paper. That should be the criteria, because otherwise what happened, our incentives for the professors and incentive for the students are in a different place, where the student is focused on the grade and professor is focused on the paper. If that is there, then this dynamics has to actually complete. You know, biggest challenge sometimes for youngsters who come to our office is the parents who said, oh, my cousin is working in Infosys and my cousin, see, we all want Gandhi to be born in neighbor's house. Right? It's not your house, boss, as long as it's a neighbor's house, right? So instead, the education system has to become practical, has to become like, for example, every student who comes to Dharwad IIT goes out, there are 5 problems that he or she can see, whether the water is leaking or whether the farm is not. I think if they stop complaining and turn themselves to, okay, for each of the problem I see, can I come up with 5 solutions? In next 10 years, we'll solve the country's problems. How do we turn around every student? So, and Professor Prasanna and Dheeraj, what happens is, even when we hire, when I send them to a rural area on a sewing machine, sir, I am an electrical engineer, sir. I didn't learn that. Boss, you are a solution provider. You forget the degree that you got. Does a street vendor who sells tomatoes, tomorrow the tomato prices go, she said, I'm going to shut my shop because I'm a tomato seller expert. It's gone. Her house is gone. She will sell potatoes. So as we become more educated, we become less useful to the society, sir, in many ways, right? So how do we change the students' perception that you're not getting a degree of mechanical engineering, you are becoming a solution provider after you graduate from that institute. Rather than, I've got 96.2 in mechanical engineering, it's of no use to anybody in this world. So the question is, how do I become that solution? And the education system has to be incentivized, encouraging, and celebrating failures. We don't celebrate failures. We don't let students or anybody take what you call that as risks per se. And also the class system of, I'm from IIT, so I'm at a different, that hierarchy of stupidity in many ways, right? In the sense that, and that's what I was telling the agriculture university, how come no farmers have ever got honorary degree after 45 degrees or 45 years of education? Why can't they get doctorate in sugarcane? But why can software industry gets it? Because why can't the farmers get honorary degree? So the question is, we need to stop romanticizing and creating a hierarchy based on our education degrees, and incentivize the students for creating solutions and taking risks. And that's where we should change it, I think, in many ways.
Thank you, sir. So related comment from Professor Narasimha. He's thanking for the enlightening talk supported by the true practical experiences from you. So he feels that the IIT students carrying our BTP projects or BTech projects should at least once go to the actual site, interact with people, and then to the small project for 4,200 hours. So basically he's talking about on-site, on-field learning.
Yes, and they should embed themselves as they come to classes or hostels. They should start living. I mean, the first question is not about going and finding what the problem statement is are you able to feel that problem statement? It's not about, oh, I have now articulated the problem statement, but are you able to feel? Because then would that solution be applicable to you if the problem was yours? See, the ownership of, a lot of us have ownership of the solution, but never have ownership of the problem. Unless you don't own the problem, the solution. So the students need to empathize and say, I'm able to relate to that problem, or I'm willing to learn what that problem is in a more embedded form. And that would lead to how do we educate, how do you break those myths? And that I think starts sometimes with a lot of the professors also saying that I don't know the solution. See, sometimes what happens is a lot of the professors make a mistake of advising. I think we should also get away from the concept is where in such classes, the professor should be able to have lessen the ego and start also sit in the classroom as a student, where let the student who has more experience actually speak about the problem. And that's the two-way nature of learning that will excite and create more solutions for a country like ours.
Sir, there is one more issue there. What you said is perfectly correct. Another thing is what is given in the print about a situation versus when you go to the actual site and see the situation, they can be very different because of multiple reasons. Unless the student realizes it, then starts his problem. Then, as you mentioned, it should become his problem.
Right.
Rather than submitting something to the class and getting his A grade.
Right.
So then, okay, thank you.
And also the grading system, sir. The question is, the point is that I would say it's not about how somebody presents or writes. I would grade A for a person who actually understood the problem. And I would, rather than whether the person has come up with a solution or not, I don't care. If somebody is able to articulate the problem in a semi-decent manner, for me, that itself is a success. That is, so rather than saying I've done this Google search, internet, and I've created with solutions and represented, somebody who actually, if in 3 slides, is able to show me what the problem is. See, for example, what happens is also, it would be a good exercise also having the students, but the grading. For example, if the four farmers are the graders, not the professors. If the farmers are brought into the class and said, now you grade these students, because it's your problem, do you think it will work? And you give the marks. For example, there's another university I went to where the engineering, mechanical engineering, which they have given a problem of grade 4, how do you make a game, physical game for grade 4? And on the final day, 24th graders were brought into the class. And the 24th class gave the grade to the engineering students. Professors were sitting back. They couldn't influence, they couldn't change. The young kids gave grade to them. So that's your real audience that graded you in many ways. And Harvard is ideally in that place where we can pick up farmers, we can pick up street vendors. You come and do the grading. And that will define what inclusivity of the system is in many ways.
Thank you, sir. There is a question from Professor Prashant Revankar regarding the poverty slogans like Garibi Hatao. Are they truly working? Do we have to rethink on these lines and shift gear to better solutions?
I think, Professor, it's also what I'm talking about it, what is our role? In a sense, because I'm not talking of the government's role. For example, we had a police person who gave a lecture to a lot of my colleagues. He said there was a person who crossed the red light and he caught him. He said, boss, what, you didn't see the red light or what? No, sir, I saw the red light, I didn't see you. Right? So the question for us is, we are ourselves as citizens, we are good complainers. So when my colleagues or anybody comes and says the water is leaking or in the road is not properly, I said, boss, okay, take it. If you were the head of Bangalore, what solution would you have brought in? If you were in charge of the Hubli-Dharwad railway system or BRTS, what solution would have brought in? So the thing is that the IS officers tell me, sir, is that, Harish, everybody comes and complains, but if I ask them what solutions can you give me so I can implement within 2 years, a lot of people run away. The question is, it's not about Garibi Hatao. Have we Like, for example, just taking SELCO or IIT Dharwad, taking it as a slogan inside and saying that in our goal in next 5 years, we will make sure 10% of local Dharwad will be Garibi Hatao. How do we start owning it? See, it's not the onus of the government always. It's the onus, and I'm not talking about BJP, the Congress, or the APs. As citizens, where have we come up with solutions? And that's for example, our whole philosophy, sir, is that my kid's maidservant has to be my maidservant's kid. So we don't want poverty to get out. Because moment poverty gets out, our cheap labor, our maidservant, our drivers, our guards actually get it. And that is what we need to look at. Are we ready as citizens? Are we ready as citizens to actually destroy? I mean, simple things, sir. When you bargain on a street and a lady is charging more, we tell, are you cheating? When you go to big bazaar, we say it's expensive. So this dichotomy of thinking, I mean, for example, I want my promotion, right? Every year, I want my salary increase. Where does your maidservant get a promotion? Where does your driver? Everybody says, I'm so glad he's my driver for 20 years. You have moved up the rank, but you did not let your driver move up the rank. And that's exactly the problem of our society per se. And how can we start from ourselves that we are responsible for Garibi Hatao, equality of society, creating technologies that are inclusive. It's the onus is on us right now. And that's what I'm trying to push here.
Sure, thank you, sir. So next questions are basically related to SELCO. What are the energy sectors or core areas SELCO is working, and how the incubation process can be at IIT Dharwad?
Yeah, we have this AIC SELCO Foundation based out of Guwahati, and our whole pitch was to work with the Center of Excellence, where many of the vernacular speaking entrepreneurs and innovators from the Northeast, if they have an issue in silk weaving, if they have an issue in better cook stores, if they have an issue in other sorts of technology, we wanted to marry these two centers as to take it forward. And one is, yes, we want to create a 100-kilometer radius in Dharwad, being a pilot site, but also getting those problems from other areas where we can start incubating technology. That's why these two centers are very critical for us.
Sure, thank you, sir. Regarding SDGs, 17 SDGs, they have objectives overlapping. So should they be addressed in a holistic way rather than isolated goals?
Completely agree. I mean, completely agree, but it's for us to showcase it. I mean, see, it's a number. I mean, SDG 7, people say, how do we do it? But as long as we create the processes in which poverty gets reduced, itself, automatically the SDGs, again, SDG is a man-made term of SDG 1, 2, 4, 8, 11. But are we creating true holistic and inclusive development? Because none of the SDGs actually talk about mind equality, right? Do we equal? Like if I say Professor Prasanna or Prasanna the farmer, suddenly we think of two different people, and we think of two different people dressed differently, right? So that and we will go to Professor Prasanna, not Prasanna the farmer. That is what I think we need to break in our mind. And moment we start doing that, creating the solutions, SDGs is a result. And what I'm talking about, the process, the result will happen. And if you start doing holistic results, all the other SDGs can actually be met.
Thank you, sir. So there is a question in question answer session. So has the government been able to provide the necessary support for our activity?
IIT Dharwad is a good example of the government work itself. I think it's a government is also made, yes, plus and minus. It depends on, again, the thing is, it all depends on who the champion is. For example, government of Meghalaya has been excellent in terms of Ram Kumar, who is the NHM National Health Mission Director of Meghalaya. Then you have Vijay Kumar, who is the second PA to Conrad Sangma. There are people like Shalini Goyal here and Priyanka Francis, Atik, LK Atik, who is Secretary Human Development, your DC of Dharwad, for example, DC of Belgaum. All, I mean, see, we pick up champions from who are able to make a difference, and we start working them. I mean, just like, for example, frankly speaking, the beauty of working with IIT Dharwad is Professor Dheeraj, Professor Prasanna, and Professor Sheshu, who actually made it happen. I mean, it's like no time we would have a meeting, Harish, boss, nahi kaam karega, boss, nahi hoga. None of the time they've ever said it. And that's the beauty of working with IITs. We are not working with IIT Dharwad. We are working with the champions in IIT Dharwad. And similarly in government, we will not waste time with people who are not going to help us. Let's use the time of people who will in the next 2-3 years. I mean, government is part of society and society is part of government. Let's pick up the champions and start working towards it.
Thank you, sir. So there is one interesting question. How can the central higher educational institutions do what they should do to have more Harish Handes?
I don't know about Harish Hande, sir, but the question is, how do we have a lot of my other colleagues who've been... So the question is, one is, today what happens is we have created a hierarchy that the IITs and then the NITKs and then the engineering colleges and the ITIs. I think it's a flat line. It should be a flat line, just like Germany did. It's like vocational schools, IITs, and each one of us should be able to go into each other's lab. And ultimately, IIT is funded by the taxpayers, and every ITI guy. So hopefully when we do this, sir, I'm telling you, I failed with IIT Kharagpur when I once created a competition with them, telling them that for every team of 3 IITians, there should be an ITI person. And the professors outrightly rejected it and saying that, Harish, what will happen to the intellectual balance? I said, why has the IIT JEE standards gone down or what? Why did he have to say that? Why did he think that the IIT people did not have that intellectual balance? That for me scared of the thought process of those professors there. And so hopefully, are we able to equate and say that, are we creating everybody as a partner? Then you will see a lot of the rural colleagues coming up where the true problem lies and where they own it and they started solve. When they start solving the problems, if they are given the right platform, this country will really go forward.
Thank you, sir. I have a last question here. To be born poor is not one's mistake, but to continue being poor is one's mistake. So your comment in the contest why poverty is not wiped out, similar to Garibi Hatao, but after 75 years of our independence.
No, it's also, I think a lot of the onus lies on a lot of institutions like us and other institutions and other citizens per se, who have taken advantage of poverty in many ways. I think it's high time. And as Ilaben, who is the founder of Seva, said that poverty is a violence on the poor with the permission of the society. And that, I think, is something that we individually, for example, there are 200 million middle-class Indians. Okay, 250 million in middle class and 50 million upper middle class. So there's 300 million people, right? If each family, for example, took this one to make sure that these are population, right? So each member took saying that I'm going to make sure only over my lifetime, 5 people will get out of poverty. Your 1.5 billion people is done, right? It's only 5 per individual that we make sure that create a process to remove poverty in the country will be done. So I think we have the resources, we have the technologies, we have the talent, we have the ecosystem, we have the institutions, like the institutions of vocational schools to IITs, we have the government, we have the policy, we have law and order. Everything that many countries don't have in democracy, the only is the willpower, individual willpower of all of us.
Thank you, sir. Professor Prasanna?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Harish. I think wonderful, as usual, exciting to listen to you. Of course, you brought out some very important points. Affordability versus low cost for the solutions. No, generally, we think, especially from one dimension of academic perspective, sitting in this AC chamber, that India need to bring only low-cost solutions. We don't talk about affordability, but we explain it. The other party is poor as partners. Not that we are giving something to them. So they will give us the exact problem what we work on.
Right.
To the field and talking to them. So I was wondering, see, many of the things that we look at in rural look around the older systems we have, whether this traditional knowledge will help us to bring new technologies in whatever the objective we are doing. For example, when I go to old houses in rural sites, it is so cool in terms of all those things. There are some inputs can be gone from there to bring.
Yes, sir. No, Professor. It's a question of mix between the solutions that make sense to whatever solutions of today. So what happens today in many ways, we use the wrong terminology. In the sense, can we save? No, let us not save. Let us, like for example, yoga was packaged as a modern way of exercise. Right? Nobody says it's an old form. It's a modern way of exercise. It became very aspirational. How do we make these innovations these solutions aspirational today? And saying that like in the same thing. So how do you make it the best you saw from the sales guys? No, they don't say second-hand cars. They say pre-owned cars. Which are the different mental thinking than second-owned, right? It's a pre-owned. Same way, can we club those solutions? What solutions might not make sense today? What solutions that exactly the cooling methodologies, the soil reverberation, but we act it. Sometimes we say let's act it, let's save it. So can we save the tribal culture? No, let's make the tribal culture aspirational. What parts can we take? What parts cannot we take? So it's like that. We know typing, but we did not do it in a typewriter. The question is, we moved on from typewriter to a computer per se. Same way, cooling. We take the cooling from that methodology of design and make sure that the architectural schools are taught 2 or 3 students. And exactly the whole question of pizza surviving is on the innovation of a pizza from a regular margherita pizza to a paneer pizza here. You modify it. Get the place for people.
No, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful talk.
There may be a few more questions, Dheeraj. I think it will cover.
Yes, there is a question regarding the process at IIT Dharwad or our center for the young entrepreneurs, how they can approach IIT Dharwad and get opportunities of incubation. So basically at the center, this center is Innovation and Incubation Center. We are also looking at the grassroots level problem identification. There will be hackathons and I invite Akshay to please write to us. It is office.ace@iitdhwac.in. We will, we'll come back to you. Thank you, sir. I'm just going to share my screen and the announcement for the next talk. So, talk number 2 is co-hosted along with IIT Dharwad INA Bangalore series. So we have a lecture series called as Samvad with INA Bangalore. And this is co-hosted with our center, GCOES, the TREES talk. And the talk is the National Biofuel Policy and Initiatives Ecosystem. The talk is by Mr. Ramakrishna YB. He is a member expert of the Working Group on Biofuels, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. The talk is on 23rd February from 4 to 5. So you use the same link to register for the talk. Thank you, Harish sir.
Thank you, Dheeraj sir. Thank you, Prasanna sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. Okay,
Thank you all. Thank you all.